Hello, dear students. I hope that you are doing well and safe. This is Dr. Abdulmunim Ali, an English language instructor of the course, The African Literature. Today, we are going to continue our lectures on the second lecture, lecture number 2. If you remember, in the last previous lecture, we talked about the definition of African literature, which we found very difficult and challenging to define the African literature. So we talked about the three categories of African literature: pre-colonial, colonial, and post-colonial African literature. So today we are going to continue on the same points, but focusing more on the pre-colonial African literature. So here is today's points. The outline of the lecture: 1. Pre-colonial African literature. 2. Forms of pre-colonial African literature. 3. Examples of pre-colonial epic. And we are going to end the lecture with the last point, which is Mwindo epic. So let us start from point number 1, pre-colonial African literature. African literature in general can be divided into 3 basic categories. And this is a point that we discussed in the first lecture, and I hope that you remember this point. Pre-colonial African literature covers the time between the 15th and 19th centuries and includes the Atlantic slave trade, when the foreigners came to Africa to do the slave trade, especially in West African region. Before the colonization of Africa, the continent had a long history of literature. Communities in the African ancient civilizations, such as Egyptians, Nubians, Ethiopians, and West African empires, had narrated stories to their generations. Most of the literature of this period was oral in nature. It was unwritten literature, which was passed down from generations to generations through memory and word of mouth. Till today's time, the African generations are told stories by the elders. The grandmothers and grandfathers used to tell the stories to the children. For instance, Amhara people of Ethiopia, Hausa people of Nigeria, Zulu people of South Africa, and Massai communities of Kenya have ways of narrating stories to their generations to enrich these generations with their cultures, values, and morals. So a person might ask a question: what forms of stories that are related to the pre-colonial African literature? And here is the answer. The forms and types of this literature of this period include 1. Folk tales. Folk tales are stories which are in popular culture, typically passed down or passed on by word of mouth. 2. Myth or mythology. Myth is a traditional story concerning the early history of a people, or explaining a natural or social phenomenon, and typically involving the supernatural beings or events. 3. Legends. Legends are also forms and types of pre-colonial African literature, and legends are traditional stories, sometimes popularly regarded as historical but not authenticated. 4. Epics. Epic is a long poem or story, typically one derived from ancient oral tradition, narrating the deeds and adventures of heroic or legendary figures or the past history of a nation. So today we have one example of epic, the Mwindo epic. 5. Animal stories. Animal tales or beast fables usually consist of short stories or poems told by animals. Songs. And 7. We have oral poems. Oral poems are forms of poetry that's composed and transmitted without the aid of writing. And 8. We have proverbs. Proverb is a short, well-known saying of wisdom, stating a general truth or piece of advice. So an example for that, there is a well-known African proverb: when there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do no harm. This is an example of African proverb. The last, number 9, is riddles. Riddle is a question or a statement intentionally phrased so as to require ingenuity in ascertaining its answer or meaning. For example, you say, I have 4 fingers and a thumb, but I will never be alive. What is it? It's yes. Let's focus on the Mwindo epic. The context of the Mwindo epic, and as we said that, epic as an example of a pre-colonial African literature is a form of the stories of pre-colonial African literature. The story of Mwindo reflects the attitudes of the Nyangan people towards the Pygmy people who live in the same region. We have 2 communities or tribe, Nyanga people and the Pygmy people live in the same region. The Pygmy people are closely associated with the Nyangan tribal chiefs, the leaders, hunting for them and even providing them with wives. The Pygmies, however, remain an independent group outside the Nyangan tribe. It is believed that the Pygmies greedy influence the way Nyangan people hunt, gather food, and perform religious ceremonies. The story of Mwindo can be seen as a celebration of the Pygmy people. Attitude towards the Pygmy rather unusual. It's rather unusual since many Pygmy groups face persecution and prejudice in other parts of Africa. Places and characters from Mwindo's epic. Tabondo, the city of 7 meeting places. Mwindo is a hero of the story. He is described as little one just born and walk, son of Mwindo. Mwindo, the king, the chief of Tabondo, father of Mwindo. Iongora, Mwindo's sister, Mwindo's aunt. Nia Mwindo, the mother of Mwindo. Musa, the god of the underworld. The story. Mwindo was the son of Mwindo, a powerful chief who had 7 wives. Mwindo heard a prophecy or prediction that he would be removed from his throne by his son. To prevent this, Mwindo decreed that his wives should bear only female children, and that he would kill any male child they produce. 6 of his wives gave birth to females. Then his favorite wife, Nia Mwindo, had a boy. The child emerged from her middle finger and could walk and talk immediately. His appearance was like that of a pygmy, one of several culture groups within Africa whose average height is less than 5 feet tall. Nia Mwindo named her child Mwindo. When the father found out about Mwindo, he tried to kill the boy with his spear. But Mwindo used magic to protect himself and to throw off his father's aim. Mwindo then buried the child alive, but Mwindo escaped. Next, the father sealed his son in a drum and threw him into a river to drown. Again, Mwindo used his magic powers to travel beneath the water. Mwindo decided to visit his aunt Iongora. Iongora's husband tried to stop him by setting traps. But with the help of animal spirits, Mwindo escaped the traps and met his aunt. A guard called upon Master Lightning to strike Mwindo down, but Mwindo's magic made the lightning bolt miss. Later, Mwindo led his uncles to his father's village, intending to punish Mwindo. They killed all of the villagers and destroyed the village. Mwindo fled to the underworld, or land of the dead, followed by Mwindo. There, Mwindo met with the ruler of the underworld, Musa, who promised to reveal Mwindo's hiding place if Mwindo performed some task for him. Mwindo did so. But twice Musa tried to kill Mwindo, and twice Mwindo used a magic stepper or club-like staff to save himself. Finally, Mwindo tracked down his father. Mwindo apologized for trying to kill Mwindo and agreed to share his kingdom with his son. Mwindo then rebuilt the village and restored all the villagers to life. Later, Mwindo killed a dragon that was a friend of Master Lightning. As punishment, Mwindo was taken up to the sky, where he had to endure blazing heat from the sun and terrible cold and rain. Mwindo endured this for a year. And after he promised never to kill another living thing, the spirit of the sky led him to return to earth. From then on, Mwindo ruled his kingdom in peace, instructing his people to live in harmony, to avoid jealousy and hatred, to accept every child, and to be kind to the sick. The end. And I hope that this lecture was beneficial to you and to all of you. And by this point, we come to an end of this lecture. Next week, I am going to teach you lecture number 3. So stay safe. Bye.